Hello. In this lecture, we're going to be talking about social cognition. One way to think about social cognition very simply is how people think about people. Social cognition are the mental abilities that people use to think about and respond to the social world. There are multiple domains of social cognition, including joint attention, face processing, emotion recognition, social perception, theory of mind, and empathy. There are a variety of other ones that are included. We'll be talking about just a couple of these, but there are many more that go beyond the scope of this lecture. Social cognition is important for anything that we do that involves the social world. So if you are interested in close relationships, how stereotypes or prejudices develop, people's conversational skills, children's pretend play or imagination, or even things like morality, you will be thinking about social cognitive processes. These are relevant for these concepts and ideas. In regard to neuropsychology, social cognition is an incredibly important cognitive skill that affects the way that we interact with the social world. As such, it is a core component of neurocognitive function in the DSM-5. It is related to several clinical disorders. So we see challenges in social cognition in individuals with autism spectrum disorders, schizophrenia spectrum disorders, and traumatic and brain injury, to name a few. This becomes particularly important when we're thinking about assessing an individual's social functioning. So social functioning is often a measure we use as outcome related to quality of life. And we know that deficits in social cognition may be part of what's happening when we see challenges in social functioning for an individual. So if we take a step back, we want to think about the social brain, which is a network of regions pictured here, which include the temporal pole, superior temporal sulcus, superior temporal gyrus, temporoparietal junction in the turquoise, the somatosensory related cortices and insula in the green, the medial prefrontal cortex in the red, and the anterior cingulate cortex in blue. All of these are regions of the brain that we refer to as the social brain that support understanding and interactions among people. Kennedy and Adolphs in 2012 came up with a model for thinking about how all of this is structured and interrelated. So this social brain may be the network that provides the neurobiological support for social cognitive processes, which again are the cognitive abilities that are specific to thinking about the social world. And these can be things like theory of mind or affect or emotion recognition. Social cognitive processes in turn support social behavior. Social behavior can be described as the observable actions occurring between two or more individuals. And it's the evaluation of social behavior over time and across contexts that allows us to think about social functioning. This model, moving from the social brain to social cognition to social behavior to social functioning, describes a structure by which we can assess the social world. Joint attention is the processing of information about both the self and the other. It's debatable if joint attention is prior to or necessary for the development of social cognition. So we see joint attention as this step that occurs right before we're thinking about other more complicated social cognitive processes. Joint attention begins to develop around 5 months of age in typically developing children. It facilitates learning. It's a key part of language acquisition. It's incredibly important for social bonding. And we see notable difficulties in joint attention in babies who develop autism spectrum disorders. I think these pictures from Monday and Newell's 2007 paper do a really nice job of demonstrating different types of joint attention. So in this top panel, we can see that there is both the response in A and the initiation of joint attention. This is happening through gestures of pointing. So in A, you can see that the assessor is pointing and the child is following to where the point is directed. And in B, the child is using their own point to draw the attention of the assessor to something that they are interested in. It's a sharing of information. You could see how this would be really important for a language. If you are with a small child and you point to a ball and label that ball, the child has then made the connection between the word that you said, ball, and the object itself, and now has a label for that object. If the child fails to follow where your point is going to, they've heard the word, but they haven't made an association with a particular object. In the bottom panel, we see the child and the assessor using eye gaze to alternate looking at a toy and draw attention to this toy. Eye gaze is another way to interact with somebody in a joint attention manner. You can see that the child is looking at the toy, then looks at the assessor, and then looks back at the toy. And it helps them get the individual to share attention with respect to the object. Emotion recognition is another type of social cognitive skill. We can recognize emotion in a variety of different ways: facial expression, tone of voice, body language, so many different types of data that can give us information about an emotion. We know that emotion recognition abilities may vary due to age, gender, presence of psychopathology, and that there is cross-cultural variation in emotion recognition. One topic that's become increasingly important is whether artificial intelligence can be trained to recognize emotion. This could be useful in a variety of contexts, like determining whether someone is enjoying a commercial or a movie. It could facilitate our understanding of, or it could facilitate individuals who have poor visual ability in terms of determining what type of emotion might be on someone's facial expression. It could also be used to determine if somebody is too sleepy to drive a car. However, it could also be used inappropriately, for instance, as some type of lie detector, in a way that's meant to potentially harm or develop a sense of mistrust in somebody. And this generally raises the question of whether emotion recognition by artificial intelligence is actually even possible, because we know that emotion recognition is inherently complex. It's not just what we see in here, but the context also matters, the history of the individual. So many things go into emotion recognition. It's a pretty complex skill. So here's an example of an emotion recognition task. Note this one happens to be emotion recognition via faces. In face tasks, which face tasks are also social cognitive skills, there may be a variety of specific components to this. You could be analyzing identity, so I could ask you if this is the same person. You could be analyzing familiarity, have you seen this person before? Or in this instance, emotion. So there's a very subtle difference between these faces, but there is a difference. This one is angry and the other one is happy. There's a ton of literature talking about how we make that differentiation and whether that happens spontaneously when we see people's facial expressions. Theory of mind is another social cognitive ability. It is the ability to understand the thoughts, feelings, and beliefs of another person. Another way to think about it is this understanding that another person has a mind. We can mentally represent someone else's perspective. Theory of mind develops a little bit later. One way we kind of look at this is when children understand the concept of false beliefs. And false beliefs is something where I know that someone has information that is wrong. This tends to develop around age 4 or 5, although there's some additional research that suggests that much younger children might understand intentional acts, which if you think about knowing that someone has an intention to do something, it requires considering the goal of someone else. And that potentially some of our classic theory of mind tasks require other demands that get in the way of us assessing theory of mind, like language. So one classic example is the Sally Ann task, and I hope I'm going to show you this video.
This is Anne, and this is Sally. This is Sally and Anne's basket and box. And one day, Sally and Anne were playing with a block in their house. And then Sally decided to put the block in the box. And then she decided to go outside and play where she couldn't see or hear anything, right? Yeah. Okay. Now, Anne, that tricky Anne, decided to take the block and put it in the basket. Now, since Sally is outside, Did she see Anne move the block? No, she didn't, did she? So when Sally comes inside, where will she think the block is? She'll think it's in there. Why will she think it's in there? Because it's in there. Okay. Jack, this is Anne, and this is Sally. And these are Sally's basket, Anne and Sally's basket and box. And guess what? One day, Anne and Sally were playing with a block in the house. And then Sally decided to put the block inside the box. And then Sally decided to go outside and play, where she couldn't see or hear anything that was happening inside. Bye, Sally. Well, that tricky Anne, guess what she did?
He took it out of the box.
She took the block and put it in the basket. Now, did Sally see Anne move the block?
And she was outside
That's right.
swinging.
That's right. She didn't see. So when Sally comes back in, where will she think the block is?
In there, but it's not. It's in there.
So she'll think it's in the box.
Yeah,
Why do you think she'll think that?
Because she put it there.
So you can see the differences in the child's ability to think about the mental state of each of the characters as they, depending on their age. Another task is a faux pas task, which I'll give you an example about, but this is really thinking about when someone makes a social mistake. And another one is a hinting task. So being able to pick up on someone's hint requires you to kind of interpret the context and what they may be thinking about and wanting you to think about. Here's an example of the faux pas task. So we might give someone a story. Helen's husband was throwing a surprise party for her birthday. He invited Sarah, a friend of Helen's, and said, "Don't tell anyone, especially Helen." The day before the party, Helen was over at Sarah's, and Sarah spilled some coffee on a new dress that was hanging over her chair. "Oh," said Sarah, "I was going to wear this to your party." "What party?" said Helen. "Come on," said Sarah. "Let's go see if we can get the stain out." We might then ask the following questions. Did anyone say something they shouldn't have said or something awkward? In this instance, Sarah did, because she mentioned the party that Helen didn't know about. Who said something they shouldn't have said or something awkward? Sarah. Why shouldn't he or she have said it, or why was it awkward? In this instance, what Sarah said was awkward because Helen doesn't know about the party and isn't supposed to know about the party. So you could see how we could code for different levels of kind of knowing something awkward happened, but maybe not knowing who said it or what was said. These are pretty complex social cognitive skills, and you can imagine how these social cognitive skills would be really important for the development of relationships and just to engage in the social world overall. So those are just a couple of social cognitive skills that we see. Overall, social cognition is really important for a variety of different reasons. It affects our ability to perceive and respond to other people. It allows us to understand and interact with the social world. It's what facilitates building and maintaining social connections and relationships. And it also forms the basis for how we develop judgments, including things like prejudices and stereotypes. Social cognitive skills are incredibly important. They are a specific type of cognitive skill that is related to our ability to understand social phenomenon in the world. Social interaction, social connection, understanding the social world is incredibly important for everyone's overall well-being and quality of life. Here are some additional readings that are available to you. Thanks so much for your attention.